Good afternoon, my name is Adam Selby Martin, otherwise known as Skinny87, and this is a tester video for the first of several videos I hope to do on the potential landing grounds for Operation Sealion, or the planned German invasion of Britain in 1940. And you join me here on Eastbourne Beach, approximately 3/4 of a mile away from the Eastbourne Pier, and I'm in one of the many breakwater areas that would have been one of the prime landing grounds for Operation Sealion in the summer and potentially autumn of 1940. And the idea of this tester video is just to get an idea of how well we could actually do a video series up and down along the coast of England to look at all of the potential landing areas that German forces might have landed in order to take their invading forces to the heart of London and the rest of England in 1940. So I think one of the first things you notice here as I'm walking on the beach is just how difficult it is to actually walk along here in the sand, loose stone and shale that's actually on the beach. And I am walking here with the benefit of modern trainers that are able to take this quite well. But you only need to imagine looking out here, and this is at relatively low tide. It probably would have been quite high tide when the Germans did actually land at whatever time it was in 1940. And you can just imagine here, put yourselves in the boot of the poor German Lancer who has actually just landed here from a barge dragged from the Rhinish rivers and actually landed on here. As we look out to sea, this would be where the shattered remnants of the Kriegsmarine would be, whatever boats had managed to get past. The last-ditch efforts of the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. Undoubtedly there would be burning hulks in the water, broken ships, smoke, flames. Everything would be on fire as far as you could see. And just put yourselves in the boots of that German infantryman. He's been loaded up at a French port, Cherbourg perhaps, Dunkirk, one of the other major channel ports. And let us not forget that this is not akin to the D-Day invasions of 1944 or even the trial landings in 1943. There were no dedicated landing craft for the Germans at that time. They literally would have been jumping over the sides of Rhineland barges or adapted landing craft that could have been dragged up from Germany, France and the other occupied countries in mainland Europe. So as you can imagine, one of those barges has dragged up, landed on this beach, guided or unguided, likely shot to pieces by RAF Spitfires and Hurricanes, Swordfish, battle bombers, anything that could have been deployed by the RAF. Because as of course we know now from recently declassified files, the Royal Air Force had something known as Banquet Light and Banquet Heavy, two operations that were to be launched in the event of a German invasion. Banquet Heavy would see all available aircraft thrown into the air, bombers, fighters, fighter bombers, training aircraft. Banquet Light would be far grimmer. All training pilots, even if you'd had just a few days in the pilot's seat, whether that was solo or with an instructor, all of the training aircraft would have been loaded up with as much ammunition and bombs as possible and flown into the skies, and they would have proceeded to strike the German forces as much as possible. And let us not mince words, that would have been an incredibly grim affair. Barely trained pilots struggling to keep their aircraft in the air, being hit by whatever anti-aircraft fire the German forces in the Kriegsmarine could put into the air. So you can imagine aircraft dueling across the skies as this happens, as you're landing, as you're jumping out of a Rhine barge that has ground its way up to the beach. You have managed to survive the attentions of the Royal Navy, the destroyers, the torpedo boats, the frigates, the mighty battleships and battle cruisers that would have put out into the channel in a last-ditch attempt. And you have landed into this water, and instead of firm sand, sort of small amounts of rocks you might have seen in the French ports as you were loading, you are now seeing loose stone, loose sand, shale, bulk waters. Incredibly difficult to walk up, even as I am walking up with modern trainers. Imagine a soaking wet Lanza with laced up boots. Hopefully he's kept them, maybe he's lost them, maybe he's dragging all of his equipment, his rifle, grenades, bag, spare kit, whatever else, a life belt perhaps, something that he's put over himself, hoping not to drown in the channel as they do go overhead. He struggles up to the top, and it is quite a difficult climb for myself. I'm not carrying anything other than this phone, and I'm struggling to get up. So imagine the poor bastard trying to climb up the top here. Artillery is raining down, machine guns, rifles, whatever ammunition, whatever weapons can be brought to bear by the British defenders. And as you are struggling to get to the top of this hill, we can see here that even as we get to the top of it, even if we ignore the modern buildings and the people moving around, we can see that it is completely open. This would not be a good place to advance. There is very little cover. There would likely be invasion defences, so the triangles, the crosses that we might be familiar with from Saving Private Ryan, but once you get up, there would be absolutely nothing, no cover, barely anything, and we can guarantee that every single house that had not been flattened by artillery or been destroyed in previous fighting would have machine gun nests, would have riflemen in there, whether they be home guard or regular army, and they would be making an absolute mincemeat of this. So your poor Lanza, maybe it's Munich, Berlin, wherever else he's come from, has managed to stagger out of his landing craft, past his dead comrades, the RAF and the Luftwaffe duelling overhead, the Royal Navy and the Kriegsmarine in a one-sided duel that would most definitely see the Royal Navy coming out on top. And he has walked to the top of this beach, and he comes to the top, and he can only see death ahead of him.